Finding an expensive, elaborate 3D printer enclosure is not difficult. There are 50,000 videos for that. But here I'm showing you one which I use myself, and I built it completely alone, and I'm not a good woodworker, and I did it even though there was a significant wood shortage in Hungary when I was making this clip. So, time to take a look at how it works. And first of all, let's talk about why you need one. Long-term followers of my channel probably know this is the new facility, the underground one. Before, I had only a small facility in Slovakia where the grater machines were all in a winter garden and air was flowing through all the time. And there I had all kinds of problems with prints warping and changing their shape. And in the end I found out that putting the printer in such a case makes the situation more stable, because you close the door, and when the door is closed there are no wind drafts. And furthermore, as you see the sparkling thing on the inside, it's also insulated so the heat can stay inside and warm up the print area a little bit. The first and most important component is this thing here. It's an IKEA Lack table, and it's available for not too much money, as you can see in the overlay on the screen. The first step obviously involves assembling the Lack table and ideally putting it on top of another table. Just stand it there and check if your 3D printer fits inside. And then you can also measure the length and the height of the wood. Because you need to be careful, at least the way I do it. The first box covers this twice, so the height of the lid is a little bit higher than that of the successors. And here, in my case, you see, it's 55 times 45 centimeters. So this wood, you can either get it cut at a home improvement store, or as in my case, when you have a wood shortage in the country and at the same time you have some damaged wood from a hole in the wall, you can also cut it down to size by hand. The main troublesome thing is that I always try to make these legs stand somewhat at the corner, as you see here. So what I normally do is I look at this here, you see here, then I align it while I hold it with the hand, and then I simply try to mark the middle. I mean, this is not rocket science, so it just needs to be somewhat usable. And then when I have this marking, I simply shoot in the screw. First shot usually is with just the screw. Give it a good yank, take it out, and then you ram it in. And then like this you just work yourself all across the sides until the construction is complete. In case any one of you needs to cut the plate by hand, as said there currently is a wood shortage in Hungary, then you can use one of these things. My wife dragged this one in Slovakia 2 years ago. It's a Bosch wood processor and it was like €100 or so. And you see, it's got the saw blade down here. And here I've got my table. You only need to be careful that you don't hit this here at the bottom. And of course, you should try to pick the least flexible blade. You see here for my wood processor, I get these two types of blade. This one, it's thinner, so its turning radius is smaller. But as we just want straight cuts, the thicker the blade, the better. So let's check again. We see we don't hit it by the millimeter. And so now it's time to cut. You want to make sure that you really don't saw into the table, because that's a pretty expensive damage if you do. ta-da! I mean, the cut wasn't perfect, but it's cut, and we can proceed to the next step, which is to clean up the wood and to prepare it for assembly. So, at this point, we need to ask ourselves, the main reason why we are playing the game is to isolate the printer from air drafts and also to allow it to heat up the printing bed. And I have a roll of this sparkling window door insulation thingy, which is commonly used in Western German apartments, and I have a reel of that left over. And I always like to cover the material. When you use a Lack table, you find out that the width very almost matches the width of the wood. The slight gap here on the sides is not so much of a problem because it will be screwed to the table anyways. And so well, you know what you have to do. You need to use some glue, cover it in glue, glue it down, cut it, and then rinse and repeat it for all the 4 boards. And as you see, we are done. And now that we've got this assembled, the next step is screwing the planks to the side of the table like this. As said, I'm recycling scrap wood here, so the cut is far from perfect. But the thing which is important is only that there is a compression here in the corners so that no air can come in and out of the printing chamber. So, and now we come to the final part of the job, which is the one part where having a second hand on site would really help. But well, I'm alone at the moment, so we have to do it alone. The most important thing is you should take the biggest ass hinge you can find, because normally you lose the first 2 holes when you assemble it in this way. And then in the next step, you take this, and at first we only need to find out how to align it properly, you see, like this, so that we know where the screws go on this side. The rest we don't care about at the moment. At the moment we only care about this side here. And so we push it against that, we mark that the holes, and then we mount the hinge on the side. And one normally wants 2 hinges, and so one can also already, you see here, push back, do both of these hinges at once. And then actually installing the hinges is a case of rinse and repeat. You just hold it here, ram in the screw, and just make sure that the screw is big enough to lock solidly inside of the hinge. At this point, you can then go as sane or as insane as you want to go. My wife, for example, she fitted one of these things, you see, a pulley, and also one of these, which you can get in a furniture shop, so that the door, it can snap shut. And essentially, as said, you can do whatever you want to do. The only thing which I would recommend is such a cutout, which should be as small as humanly possible, so that you can bring in and out the power and the USB cable. And what you can do if you are in a very bad surroundings, I mean, these printers are now under the ground, so there isn't very much in terms of draft. But if this would be a winter garden or something like that, you can, when you have the cables installed, ram an old sock or an old nylon stocking or something like that inside to also close this venue for balancing air to flow. The door is closed, the laundry is in the background, the printer is inside. The important question which remains is, was it worth it? And I personally think that it was worth it, for one simple reason. The printer is inside of the enclosure, and I can print with it. And all of this for essentially next to no cost. I might still rework some of the cuts in the future when my wife is here and I've got 4 hands. But as you see, I built this completely alone.